cryptid upset no one bothered to inform him of his tragic backstory. Part 7 by Crimson Seekers. Queen Thumper. You alright? Your heartbeat sounded like death metal earlier. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. Yeah, I'm fine. Queen Thumper. Okay, I'm calling bullshit right now. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. Let it go, Rumi. Queen Thumper. Alright, if that's how you want to be, Elsa. But if you need to talk, I'm the best listener. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. Do you want me to make the obvious rabbit joke or the present mic joke? Queen Thumper. Present mic joke is more original. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. I'll take it under advisement. Queen Thumper. But seriously, Hawks, you always get pretty down this time of year. A lot worse this year, though. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. I'm just really stressed right now. Queen Thumper. You? Freely admitting to stress or feeling pressure of any kind? Hawks, how close are you to a complete mental breakdown? Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. It's not that bad. Queen Thumper. Oh, now you're trying to walk it back. Not fooling me. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. Rumi, it's fine. You don't need to worry about me. Queen Thumper. Take a day off, Hawks. You're about to have a nervous breakdown. I can cover your patrol next Sunday. Sleep in. Take some time for yourself. Go full spa day if you have to. I'll join you in the evening to make sure you're relaxing. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. What? No, Sunday's your day off. Queen Thumper. Consider it me paying you back for all those times you covered for me so I could go on dates with Yumi. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. I'm not sure. Queen Thumper. Take the day off or I add Sanaga to the chat. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. Suddenly, I am taking a detour to pick up bath bombs and face masks. Queen Thumper. Good boy. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. Thanks, Rumi. You're a good friend. Queen Thumper. Right back at you, chicken shit. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. Wow, and here I thought we were having a moment. Queen Thumper. We were, but I refuse to let this conversation end on an emotional note. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. The fact that you of all people are getting married astounds me. Queen Thumper. Sucks to suck, doesn't it, single boy? Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. Fuck off. Queen Thumper. Just let that hot guy you're always complaining about rail you. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. Not having this conversation right now. Queen Thumper. Yes, having this conversation right now. Hawks? Hawks? Hawks, don't you fucking dare ignore me. Chicken wings, hot dog and bologna. Red, 10:52 p.m. Queen Thumper. I am fucking murdering you next time I see you. The League of Villains has certainly become more active in recent months, Nemery muttered, hand pressed over her mouth as she looked over the papers in front of her. Schroeder grunted in agreement. Their activities are going to be pretty problematic soon if they don't slow down. What do you mean? Hisashi asked, leaning back in his chair to look upside at the two of them. They've started gaining public support. People have started calling them the League of Vigilantes, if you can believe it. It's not that hard to believe, Nemery said, looking up from the essay she was grading. If you think about it, The only crimes they themselves committed before all this was breaking and entering, assault, attempted murder for Shigaraki, and kidnapping. When most people hear League of Villains, they're expecting them to be a bunch of mini all-for-ones. She shrugged, twirling her pen between her fingers. After all that, pretty much all of their crimes can be charged as vigilantism. Since they've been so high-profile from the start, it was bound to be a problem from the get-go. You know how the public gets over vigilantes. Especially ones that are as effective as the League has been, Shota muttered, a frown on his face. Hey, Shota, can you help me read Midoriya's paper? Hisashi asked, chair tilting back even further so he could stick the paper onto Shota's nose. His writing got all tiny and excited again. Shota rolled his eyes, but snatched the paper out of his hands and began going over it with his own red pen regardless. The League's definitely trying something, though, he muttered, as his eyes scanned through the problem child's minuscule handwriting. They're always trying something, Nemuri said. We're just not sure what. We can actually sort of deduce what they're going to do by what we know about them, Shota said, circling a section of the paper in red and adding a note about going off in tangents. Shigaraki's whole thing is tearing down Hero Society, most represented by his attempts to kill All Might. Some of the people who joined the League as well, like Spinner and Toga, we know they joined because of Stain, and that doesn't bode very well either. You're saying that they're doing this to tear down Hero Society? Hisashi asked. This doesn't seem like the most practical way to do it. What, just because... Hisashi, what is this essay even supposed to be about? Midoriya's all over the place. I let them choose whatever topic they wanted. That explains a lot. Anyway, just because they're not running around murdering heroes doesn't mean they aren't being effective. They're just doing what vigilantes do, but on a nationwide scale. Nemuri laughed at the confused and lost look on Hisashi's face. You're primarily a daytime hero, so you don't have to deal with vigilantes as often, but they have a tendency of shaking faith in the hero system, especially the good ones. You know, protecting the people the heroes can't, bringing down justice without fear of higher-ups trying to sweep something under the rug. They show how we're flawed, and that can get pretty dangerous. Hisashi's eyes widened behind his sunglasses in understanding, finally setting his chair back on all four legs and spinning around to face them fully. And the League is the highest-profile group of vigilantes we've ever seen. Shota nodded. Students have been spending a lot of time on it in current events. Every week we have to have another lesson on how what they're doing is going to affect the public perception of us. I've never had to spend so much time with a class on current events until this year. I'm considering just setting up a weekly assignment where they have to keep up to date on the League's activities. I've actually started to fall behind in some other subjects because we have to spend so much time on them. The League is powerful, quick, and clever. They don't have to worry about bureaucracy like we do, so they've been solving cold cases left and right. Nemuri shrugged and flipped over to the next paper to grade. It started this whole discussion about them bringing down crime rings and bringing home people we were never able to. And that's going to look pretty damaging soon. And the information leaks, Hisashi murmured, a dour look on his face. Shota glanced at him but didn't comment on his down demeanor. Those are probably the worst of it, Shota said, glaring at the paper in front of him as if it could solve all his problems. You remember Shinodike? Yeah. And it's all gone downhill from there, Nemuri commented. The Hanzo cartel cover-up got a few hero licenses revoked, and you've seen the trial on television, and the protests against the TPD are only getting larger. And they just broke into the HPSC, Hisashi continued. They won't tell us what was taken, so who knows what the hell we're going to find out, or what kind of damage it can do. The Commission's a government body, so most of its activities are required to be made public record by law, but it's got to be some seriously shady stuff if they're refusing to even warn anybody outside of the highest staff in the Commission what was taken. They're not even giving us an estimate of how damaging this could be. Shota hummed his agreement. All we know is that if they took a significant amount of information from the Commission's classified archives, and if that information is anywhere near as damaging as what the League's been releasing so far, the reaction's going to be brutal. I'd be surprised if we didn't have riots in the streets, Nemori said. Shigaraki's gotten clever, and we have no idea where to find the League. We don't have another chance like the one Yayodazu gave us back in Kamino. Shoda's hand clenched around his pen, fingers going white at the pressure as he scowled. The League's trying to cut down society as we know it, and they're succeeding. Alright, so the Suzuki Yakuza lead didn't follow through, Shigaraki announced, as he burst back into the bar, causing everyone to look up at him. However, we no longer have any competition or leads left in Shibuya. Cross it off the map, then? Spinner asked, glancing up from his file. Shigaraki grunted, and Dabi watched his spinner stretched over and cross Shibuya off the list of Greater Tokyo on the wall. We've completely finished Tokyo, then. Shigaraki hummed, walking over to scan their "Who the fuck is Dabi" wall, while Dabi himself simply shrugged and continued reviewing the files, listening to the conversation around him as it happened. We've cleared the largest level in the game, then. But what about the rest of it? We only have Kawasaki and Shigimahara left in Greater Tokyo. Hawk said that a couple of heroes he has working on this are about halfway done with the areas they're focusing on. That's where we'll be focusing next, then, Shigaraki decided, before turning to face the rest of the room. Have we finished sorting through the files? We? Dabi repeated mockingly under his breath. Fuck off, you discount easy-bake oven. Have you finished? Yeah. Dabi rolled his eyes, snapping the folder in his hands shut, tossing it into a large pile of folders in the center of the room. I'm done. Great, Shigaraki said, turning to Toga. Go get some blood. You and Kurogiri are dropping off all these bullshit folders. It's getting cramped in here. Toga beamed and squealed in excitement, bouncing off to her room to go find whatever blood sample she wanted to try out. Dabi fondly shook his head, slowly standing up and helping Spinner and Twice pack all the bullshit files into boxes. We're getting close, Twice chirped happily. All this effort and we're finally closing in. This is pointless. Yeah, Dabi grinned. We've made more progress in the past. He paused, trying to remember how long it had been. 7 months? Spinner offered. Yeah. More progress in the past 7 months than I have in 8 years. Toga bounced back into the room, or rather, a middle-aged woman in a pressed suit, who honestly looked deranged with Toga's excitement on her face. I'm ready, she cheered. Shigaraki grunted and waved at Kurogiri, who took his cue to open a portal to the newspaper office halfway across Tokyo. Toga hummed happily and picked up the first box of files, skipping through the portal before coming back a minute later to grab another. The rest of the League watched the process in relative silence. Dabi frowned. Something was wrong. I feel like I'm forgetting something, he muttered, running a hand through his hair as he thought. Spinner and Twice glanced at him, while Shigaraki simply rolled his eyes and kept his attention on whatever free-to-play game he had going on his phone. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll remember whatever it is, Twice said, clapping a comforting hand on his shoulder. You fucking forget everything. Yeah, Spinner agreed. No offense, Dabi, but I already know I'm gonna take offense to this. I've literally seen you text the group chat asking if any of us has seen your phone. Harvey Dent's done it more than once, don't sugarcoat it. Shigaraki cackled. Fuck off, coconut flakes. Right back at you, Patchwork. You wanna fucking go, chapstick poster boy? Let's fucking go, Evanescence! Just as Dabi and Shigaraki launched themselves at each other, growling out insults, Dabi only just barely heard Kurogiri's tired sigh before a portal opened between them. The past year he's had with his class was really fucking testing Shota's will to live. Most other years he had been a teacher, he'd just expelled those with no potential, or max stupidity, suffered through every field trip and training camp, slept all day during the breaks. But this particular class, throughout this particular year... Shota was 95% convinced he'd found a grey hair earlier that morning. He'd wondered if he should quit teaching, or maybe heroism altogether once the school year was over. He half considered just letting himself get mauled on patrol, so he could isolate himself with a nice pension, become a recluded cat person who didn't have to deal with all this bullshit. But he didn't do that. Instead, he was stuck with all the students staring expectantly up at him, all sat around the dining table in the common room, not marching down to Nez's office to turn in his 2-week notice. "So," he began, looking over his silent class. "I'm sure you're all smart enough to figure out why the staff is being required to meet all of you on Sunday instead of waiting until tomorrow, especially if you've been keeping up with the news." New documents reveal government-sanctioned quirk experimentation, by Saito Gore. A new leak by the League of Villains reveals the Hero Public Safety Commission has partaken in highly illegal quirk experimentation. It is currently confirmed that a facility in Chiba was used to perform experiments on criminals with life sentences. We are currently working to confirm the identities of those involved and those impacted. The HPSC has released a statement denying the allegations. Read more. His class remained silent, but they nodded their heads quietly. "The League of Villains has leaked possibly the most damning information yet, and more is still coming out as we speak." Shota glanced down at the notes from the staff meeting, and sighed before he continued. "I think it's best that I inform you now how we believe this is going to impact your education here at UA, and what we're doing to try and mitigate any ramifications that could come upon any of you." Kirishima hesitantly raised a hand, and had a troubled look on his face. Shota nodded his head at the student. "Sensei, what do you mean by ramifications on us? I didn't think anything had come out about the education system specifically." Shota sighed, mentally crossing out any hope he had of squeezing in a nap before his patrol that night. "It's not a direct matter. Nothing has explicitly come out about UA, Shiketsu, or any of the other hero schools. It's more of what we're expecting to be an osmosis effect of what's going to come out about the Commission's activities. Any of you know which news scandal, out of the dozens that have appeared this week, is most likely to affect public perception of UA? Hero Commission found to have secret police, by Ito Aiko. New documents revealed by the LOV, and summarily fact-checked and followed up on, reveals the Hero Public Safety Commission to be guilty of ordering hits on those they consider to be dangerous persons. These people aren't top Yakuza bosses or trafficking ring organizers. It's those with information the HPSC doesn't want getting out. The HPSC has released a statement denying. Read more. Midoriya hesitantly raised his hand after a moment of silence. Shota wasn't surprised, and made a loose gesture for the kid to talk. "It's about what came out about the legacy program in Hawks, isn't it?" Shota watched as the faces of some of his students fell flat at that statement. He wasn't surprised that not all of them knew about it yet. It had only come out 2.5 hours prior. Tokiyami looked particularly stricken. "Yeah. We're expecting a lot of public outcry about hero training programs being targeted at minors, and we're not currently sure about whether or not this might lead to UA being shut down." "What?" Kaminari cried, similarly shocked exclamations escaping some of those surrounding them. Hero Commission accused of blackmail and extortion, by Minami Miyako. Another new information leak by the League of Villains has revealed records of the Hero Public Safety Commission blackmailing and extorting dozens of heroes into silence, with threats of blacklisting, contract termination, having their licenses revoked, to even bringing false charges against them. The HPSC has released a statement. Read more. Shota flashed his quirk, and the class quickly settled down. He sighed as he tilted his head back, squeezing out his eye drops. Our current plan of action, which we're going to have more meetings about to finalize over the next week, is to cancel this year's entrance exam. He looked back down at his students. There will be no new classes 1A, B, C, D, E, etc., next year. You are one of the last 2 hero classes to be trained at UA High School. So, is UA shutting down then? Uraraka asked worriedly, wringing her hands together. Several of the other students shared the same concerned look as the bubbly girl. UA High School will be shutting down, Shota said, barreling over any more shocked exclamations before they could begin. UA University will be starting. UA University? One of the students muttered. UA will be using the next 3 years to transition into a university format. First-year teachers will be using the next year to prepare, and the year after that, we will begin entrance exams for the first-year UA University students. Second years will use that year to prepare, and the third-year teachers after that. It has been planned to try and allow you all to continue and finish your education at UA High School, and allow all those who have not been able to have a chance this year to apply to UA University in 2 years' time. Yayorozu raised her hand, and Shota nodded for her to speak. Will other hero schools also be following this approach? We're not currently sure, Shota admitted. However, with the severity and the amount of public outcry already happening, we're expecting legislation to raise the hero training program limit to at least 18. As all of you are already enrolled, you may be exempt from that. However, Nezu wants all of us to inform you now that we will try our best to allow you to continue your education here, assuming your parents still give their permission, that the hero program might be transitioned into another general education class. Shota tried his best to not let his gaze linger too long on Shinso, who looked particularly pissed at the idea of having fought tooth and nail to get out of Gen Ed, only to be kicked right back in come the new school year. You would all, of course, be automatically accepted into UA University as an extra class for that year, should this happen, but we decided it would be best if we informed you of this now instead of tomorrow's press conference. His class was silent, faces solemn. Any questions? Every hand raised. Shota sighed. Definitely not getting that nap in before patrol. Hero Commission information leaks show record of quirk trafficking. Number 2 Hero Hawk's main victim. By Kandajiro. In perhaps one of the most shocking new Hero Public Safety Commission scandals to be revealed by the League of Villains this week, new documents that have been extensively followed up on and verified reveal Number 2 Hero Hawks to be a victim of quirk trafficking by the HPSC. The Commission gained an interest in the young Hawks, or as we now know his name to be, Takami Keigo, after he saved 9 people from a high-speed car crash at the young age of 6. Takami was then sold to the Commission by his mother, Takami Tomoe, and he was taken into a government-sponsored facility to join a training program known as the Legacy Program. Records show very few of those in the Legacy Program to have survived, and none of the children recruited into the program were allowed to leave without having their memories altered if decided to have no potential in the program. Takami's name was buried by the HPSC when he was 6, to hide any possible relation to his father, known as Takami the Thief, a famous robber and serial killer in the slums of Fukuoka. Records of Takami's training are brutal to read, ranging from combat training to interrogation, even to lessons on withstanding torture, beginning from when he was only 11 years old. Read more. Hawk sighed happily as he sank deeper into the almost scorching water. He almost never had an opportunity to use the lavish tub, borderline a pool, his apartment had come with. He might have to take more days off, if only to have the time to feel his muscles unwind and relax in the heat of the water. Having left all his feathers, except for the soft down close to the bone, underneath a heat lamp in the living room, Hawks was very much in a comfortable bliss right at that moment. He stretched, groaning at the pleasant burn of his sore muscles. Both of his phones were completely turned off, and tucked away in a desk drawer so he didn't even have to look at them. His agency knew to forward any calls they might have for him to Rumi, and while she might not have an agency of her own, she was smart and could definitely keep the area from falling apart for a day at the very least. Hawks leaned back, closing his eyes as he relaxed. No heroes, no sidekicks, no commission, no league, no Dabi and his stupid blue eyes. No, nothing. He allowed himself a small smile. He startled when he heard a pounding at his front door, choking slightly on the barely lukewarm bath water. Shit, had he fallen asleep? Hawks frowned as he lifted his hand out of the water, his fingers and palm pruned to the extreme as his skin faded into talons. The pounding at his door began again. "Hawks! You in there?" He relaxed. It was just Rumi. "Just a minute," he shouted back, moving one of his feathers in the living room to unlock and open the door as he crawled out of the tub and reached for a towel. "Come in." He returned his attention to quickly drying down his body and patting the water out of his down feathers as she entered the apartment. "Give me a sec, I'm getting dressed," he called out as he slipped on boxers and sweatpants. Tying his halter top at the neck, he grabbed for his towel and started drying his hair as he exited the bathroom, freezing when he saw what awaited him in the living room. Rumi was there, still in full costume and looking troubled, which was never a great sign, and beside her stood a plain man in a trench coat, leafing through his briefcase. They both turned to him, giving him an unidentifiable look. Hawks briefly wondered if it was possible to be underdressed in his own home. Probably, but in his own defense, he had no idea they were coming. "What's going on?" he asked after a moment, settling his towel around his shoulders instead of continuing to dry his hair, calling his wings back to them. The warmed feathers proved a comforting weight against his back. "I apologize for the intrusion," the man next to Rumi said, bowing slightly. "But I'm afraid it's important. I'm assuming you've seen the news." Hawks blinked. A feeling of dread that had become all too familiar the past few months settled in his stomach. "If it's something that happened today, then no," he responded, slowly making his way over to the kitchen. The move was less for practicality and more to get behind the counter that separated it from the living room. He could handle people seeing his talons, but he wasn't very comfortable with a stranger being able to see his fucked up bird feet. "I took the day off, no exceptions, so I've turned both my phones off." "That explains why you weren't answering my calls," Rumi muttered under her breath. Hawks took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. It was becoming very, very clear that something was wrong, and it wasn't going to do him any favors to panic. "I suppose it's best that I get right to the point then, instead of making you wait," the man said. Hawks watched him warily, plucking a glass off the counter and filling it with water. "My name is Detective Tsukachi no Masa, from the Matsufutsu Police Department." He sat at the counter, tapping his talons nervously against the glass. "A case has been opened against the Hero Public Safety Commission for quirk trafficking and child abuse, amongst other charges." Hawks forced himself to keep breathing. So that's what it was about. "How effective would it be for me to pretend like I have no idea what you're talking about, and that I have nothing to do with this?" The detective, Tsukachi, gave him a sympathetic look as he shook his head. "Not very. You've already been identified as a key witness in the case. And if you don't want to testify, you're still enough of a person of interest that we expect you to be in danger." Hawks let out a bitter laugh. "The Moonlights, right? Their execution squad. You're afraid there's gonna be a hit on my head. He rubbed a hand over his face through his hair, catching briefly in the wet tangles. Thought I'd make it to at least 26 before they decided to take me out. Hawks, Rumi murmured, taking a few steps forward to lean over the counter, laying a comforting hand on his shoulder. How's this gonna go down? Asked Hawks in a monotone voice, already exhausted from the conversation. Due to the determined threat on your life, Mirako is currently in an official capacity to act as a security detail. Ain't nobody gonna sneak up on you with my ears around here. Rumi grinned, and Hawks found a slight bit of comfort in her confidence. We're still working on the details, but the current plan is to have a rotating roster of heroes stay with you to ensure your safety. We'll be contacting you within a week about the case if you're willing to testify. Hawks shrugged as best as he could, with how tense his shoulders had become. Might as well, if everyone already knows about this. Can't get much worse. Tsukachi nodded. Thank you, Takami-san. Hawks knew he was fast. He was famous for it, but right at that moment he'd be surprised if anything would ever be faster than the speed at which his stress levels racketed up at hearing the name. It was fast enough that he didn't even have time to think about calming himself before he felt the muscles in his hand forcibly contracting and the glass in his hand shattering under his grip. His hand tightened into a fist, shards of glass singing into his palm. The detective startled at the sudden sound, and Rumi flinched back. It took all of Hawks's willpower to force his other hand to grip his arm instead of grabbing Rumi. He didn't need his dumbass predator instincts growing Rumi, prey, and making the situation worse. His hand felt warm as the blood welled up from the sharp glass, and further up his arm stung as he felt the pinpricks of his talons digging into his skin. God, Hawks! Rumi breathed in shock, eyes wide. Fuck, are you okay? Shit, you're bleeding, let me see. Can't. Hawks wheezed out, throat tight. It had been over a year since he'd last stress gripped, and even longer since he'd done it in front of another person. I'm not gonna be able to let go for a while. It's part of my quirk. Is there anything I can do to help? Rumi asked, and Hawks looked up at her and, shit, he'd made her worried. He shook his head. Sooner we get this conversation over with, sooner I'll be able to let go, he muttered. Just don't call me that. The detective looked shaken. Hawks could feel his eyes lingering on the red streaks he knew were running down his arm and hand, but nodded nonetheless. His fingers tightened at the attention, and Hawks chewed at the inside of his cheek to prevent himself from making any noise. Tsukachi seemed to speed through the rest of the conversation, only calling him by his hero name. Hawks appreciated that, and soon left with a promise to call the next day with more information, and to keep him updated. Hawks tersely bid the detective goodbye, and sank further into his seat, awkwardly burying his head into the crook of his elbow as the door shut. Rumi had crossed over to be on the same side of the counter as him, at some point, and was rubbing circles into his back, right between his wings. Hawks, she asked quietly. He gave a thought to how it was vaguely disconcerting for Rumi to be so subdued. He turned his head, eyes skipping over the small puddle of red that was smeared underneath his arm, to look at her. Worry was clear as day on her face. Keiger, he muttered, tongue almost stumbling on the name he hadn't spoken in years. You can call me Keigo if you want. She gave him a soft smile. Hawks had felt as if his entire day had taken place in the Twilight Zone at that point. Keigo, then. Anything I can do to help you stop gripping that glass like a teddy bear? Hawks? Keigo. Was he Keigo now? Keigo let out a choked laugh. Turn off the lights. It helps me calm down. Rumi nodded, and Keigo listened to her footsteps pad across the floor and then the click of the light switch before the room was bathed in darkness, the only light coming through the nightlife outside his window. He closed his eyes, feeling his muscles uncoil. Rumi's hand returned to rubbing his back, and a few minutes later, the shards of glass made an odd chime-like sound as they fell onto the counter from his shredded palms. Although he knew his cheeks were blotchy, and he could feel a pounding headache from his swollen sinuses, Keigo was really glad his quirk made him unable to cry. He had enough jarring emotion for one day.